You are now watching Dom on Your Dime, where over here we understand that time is money, so let's get into spending yours. What is up, you guys? It's your girl Dominique, and you already know I'm about to what? Drop a mother-loving dime. I'm just coming through with a quick little voiceover. It looks like our boy Jonathan Majors, yes, Jonathan Majors has been found guilty of, I believe it's 3 or 4 counts. He was not acquitted on 2, but found guilty on 1. Basically what that means is that he was accused of a reckless assault opposed to basically he didn't intentionally try to assault her. It doesn't really make any sense. The girl was trying to take his phone. There's video of him basically wrestling her back and forth out of the car, trying to get her in the car. He runs away from the girl. Let me put this into perspective. Let's say someone tries to take something from you without your consent, and basically you take it back. In the process of doing that, they get harmed. So he didn't intentionally try to harm her, but while recklessly taking back his stuff, she was harmed in the process. There's recorded conversation that she had made with him, basically talking about he wanted her to represent him because he is a strong black man, and basically present her with other black women that he wanted her to act like. What? Anyway, so yeah, he gave her examples of Michelle Obama, Coretta Scott King, top black male influencers with top wives who basically stayed in their place is what he wanted her to do. And that led to altercations between the two. Now, ain't that some ish? I'm just saying, it's like, what are we talking about? You can't take back your property from someone who is taking their property from you. Basically, she thought that she saw messages from a girl who some think it might have been Megan Good, but that's another story. But the point is, she took back his stuff. He was trying to get away from her, and well, it looks like a guy may be facing up to a year in prison. This is his first offense, so hopefully it won't go that far. He will be sentenced on February 6th. Like I said, this is wow. Now, of course, I'm gonna be just a little messy. I do find it funny that Jonathan Majors went out and found him a black woman when he was in a life crisis, but that's just a whole nother story. Black man, take a lesson. I think history has taught us you guys like to seem to hang yourselves at this point, but let's go on. You guys go ahead and watch the news report. I want you guys to go ahead and like this video. Please take a second to share, subscribe if you haven't already. It's your girl Dominique, and I'll catch you on the next one later.
That point, and would the jury have factored that in? In other words, we've all been in fights with people we love, and so it's not the same as a more conscious.
As Brian smiles, he's like,
yeah. So this is the difficult part for me, and this is where I was getting in trouble at home when I tried to break this down to my wife. What I didn't like about this defense is they didn't focus on what is called Penal Law 3525. It's the ability to use force to stop a larceny or theft or criminal mischief to damage your property. And I always go back to this analogy that I've said multiple times in ABC. And I'll use Kira, use an example. If Kira's walking down the street and someone takes her purse, the law says you're allowed to use force to take your property back. The law doesn't say, well, your girlfriend's allowed to take your cell phone because she's allowed to check for infidelity. The law doesn't say, well, my wife's allowed or I'm allowed to take my wife's property because I need to check it for this or that. No, to me, this broke down to Grace Jabari stealing property and Jonathan Majors using force. Now, the question is it appropriate force to take back his property? But that seemed to be an argument that was missed completely in this trial. I'm not sure quite why. For the most part, they really that she saw, that she supposedly bumped into a wall, supposedly bounced her head off of the DJ booth, was smoking with a cigarette. Was her finger really broken? Was her ear really scratched? That's where this case really focused. It didn't focus on, is any person justified of using force to take back their property?
So Majors didn't testify in his own defense, right?
That's correct. He did not testify in this case.
So do you think that helped or hurt him?
Hindsight's always 20/20. So you look at it now and you're like, maybe it hurt him. I think the difficulty in him testifying was that the evidence that came in was so strong that, for lack of a better term, this was a toxic relationship. This was a man who believed he was, as his own words, a great man, and that he... But I think on another sense, him testifying to what happened in that vehicle, saying, I was just trying to get my phone back. This was not a form of manipulation. This wasn't a form of abuse. This was someone took my property and I tried to take it back with as little force or little harm as possible, and she wasn't injured when I left. I think that could have been helpful as well.
All right, let's go to Aaron Katersky, who's been covering this for us. Thank you, Brian, our senior investigative reporter. So, Aaron, this is a split verdict. Brian's just been slicing and dicing the law with us and some of the evidence in the case. What do you make of this verdict? What's the jury saying, and what are the consequences for Jonathan Majors?
I think off the bat, with 2 counts of conviction, Jonathan Majors faces as much as a year in prison, although hard-pressed to find another case of misdemeanor domestic violence where a first-time offender actually served time. But be that as it may, he does face the possibility of a year in prison on each of the 2 counts of conviction. Terry, I think the verdict reflects a signal from the jury that they did not believe Jonathan Majors intentionally assaulted Grace Jabari in the backseat of that SUV back in March, but was reckless when he tried to grab back his phone and left her with a lacerated ear and a fractured finger. Because on both counts that involved intentional conduct, the jury acquitted him. On the counts where it was just reckless assault, he was convicted. And then the jury saw video of the alleged harassment outside the SUV where Majors is seen hoisting Jabari off the ground and shoving her back into the SUV. That was pretty cut and dry, it seemed, to the jury, and so they convicted him on the single misdemeanor count of harassment.
So what's the talk, Ben, Aaron, just about his future and his career and how that's playing into all of this? I mean, a lot of the coverage has been about how he was this rising star within Marvel, and that this case could devastate his future.
Well, he was a rising star within Marvel, wasn't he? You know, with roles in Loki and Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which is where he met Grace Jabari on set. She was doing a dance instruction for some of the cast members. And a lot of his projects have been put on hold pending the outcome of the case. But regardless, and you know, he can try to fight the 2 counts of conviction, but regardless, there were some things that came out during trial which were not a good look for his reputation. The jury heard, and Majors does not dispute, that Majors was throwing things at Grace Jabari on several occasions, threw a candle at her head, the candle container smashed, the jury saw pictures of it. There were clearly instances of verbal and emotional abuse where he's imploring her not to come home drunk because he's a great man, he needs a great woman to support him, and implores her to behave more like Coretta Scott King or Michelle Obama, implicitly comparing himself to the husbands of those 2 women. And there were other instances where he tells her, and the jury saw surveillance images of this, to button up her blouse. He thought her blouse was unbuttoned too much as they were going out on the night, March 25th, earlier this year when the assault occurred. So there were things that weren't great for Majors that came out. Now, whether he can overcome that, Kira, Terry, you guys know Hollywood sometimes has short memories.
Well, although since really the Me Too movement, it is hard for someone to come back from these kinds of allegations without a great journey of reconciliation with all, himself first, perhaps.
And Terry, I think that what you just said seems to reflect a reason that the Manhattan District Attorney decided to bring this case in the first place, because prosecutors seem to believe that it doesn't have to just be Harvey Weinstein or conduct that reaches that level.